Welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is Purendra Prasad. I am professor in the Department of Sociology. Today we are going to discuss a module called Homeopathy, Siddha medicine, ethnomedicine and the folk medicine. This is part of the course Sociology of Health. In understanding different medical knowledge systems, the alternative medical knowledge and alternative systems of medicine are very important for sociologists to look at. Now, if you look at each of these alternative systems that we have seen earlier, Ayurveda, we have seen Unani, we have seen actually how these text-based medical knowledge systems emerged and how they have actually evolved over a period of time. Homeopathy actually is again a medical knowledge system that was developed in the late 18th century by a German kind of a medical practitioner, and so the homeopathy actually the origin is traced to Germany. It's believed that homeopathy actually has again a very distinct epistemology, and it has its own kind of a philosophy. What homeopathy believes that each individual is unique and his or her kind of responses constitute the basis for any interaction between doctor and that of the patient. So there is no one set of treatment that can be uniformly given to different individuals. Each individual actually has to be treated differently based on his or her condition. While allopathic knowledge system actually believes that unless there is standardization, replicability and its universal kind of a scope, the medical knowledge system cannot be scientifically applied, and therefore a lot of Western or allopathic medical knowledge system and the doctors actually label homeopathy as pseudo-medicine, pseudoscience, and not so scientific medical knowledge system. Why? While allopathic knowledge system actually is based on the clinical trials and controlled kind of a population where there is a testing of these drugs and pharmacopoeia done, and there are phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials actually undertaken, and post kind of a trial is marketed, etc. That's how drugs come into existence. While homeopathy medicines actually are prepared based on individual kind of a responses and the environment which actually provides them the basis. Okay. So initially homeopathy actually was patronized by people who were not treated with other systems of knowledge. Second set of clients who prefer homeopathy medicine were those who think that it has no side effects, and for some common ailments homeopathy seems to be accepted as more efficient. But there are two sets of problems that a lot of these the consumers also identify. One is that it's a very long process. Okay, so it takes enormous time for the patient to actually get treated. Okay, and second is that homeopathy is not in tune with the the modern medicine where things can be surely said that it will cure this particular thing. Okay, but why is it so? Why is it that homeopathy actually takes longer time, and what is its basic principles on which this medical knowledge actually emerged? It believes that like produces like, meaning that if there is bodily temperature actually rising, so you need to actually give medication which can aggravate that condition of heat, and then it can actually be cured. And second dimension is that through dilutions, or what they call in terms of potency. So how much of the potency that need to be administered is dependent upon each individual response. Okay. So while allopathic medicine actually requires also a case history, but that case history is, for a very short span of time that they take the case history, while homeopathy wants a very long history of individuals in terms of their food habits, their sleep habits, their everything, because it also believes that it is to do with certain equilibrium. Okay, so in that sense, a different system of knowledge which actually gained its ascendancy first in Europe and other countries, but later on it was introduced in India. In India, it was introduced in Bengal for the first time. Dr. Sarkar was the first homeopathy doctor in Bengal, and later on the homeopathic Calcutta Homeopathy Hospital was established, and then it spread to different parts of the country. And today, I think even in smaller kind of towns, you find homeopathy individual kind of practitioners who in most occasions actually provide free of treatment, and their clientele actually include the rich middle class and even the lower classes. So there is that wider scope for alternative systems of medicine. So in that sense, it's important to understand, you know, each of these medical knowledge systems have their own kind of pharmacopoeia, their own kind of diagnostic mechanism, and their own explanatory mechanism why a particular illness is caused, how it can be cured. So there is no standard kind of mechanism, and this is something that the diversity of this knowledge actually is very, very important for sociologists to actually comprehend and understand how there is coexistence of these systems of medicine. Okay, even individual kind of a patient actually is dependent on both homeopathy and allopathy at the same time. Okay, this is because of the perception that homeopathy actually is not it does not have side effects, it's not harmful, and it may take longer time, but it would have its own impact. Okay, whether these perceptions are right, wrong, is something that we need to understand the community perceptions rather than judge based on certain universal rationality, that because it has a different kind of a practice, you can't actually dismiss and say that it does not have the same scientific kind of a temper. Okay, so from the local communities and the people's perspective, I think when one needs to understand the alternative systems of knowledge, and in that sense, homeopathy is one other alternative way to understand why people's rationality actually justifies these medical knowledge systems. While homeopathy actually is is a Western medicine, it's not actually a non-Western medicine, but it's an alternative medicine, which is today very, very popular in both in the Western and non-Western context. So when today people are talking about alternative kind of medical systems, this is primarily because of the the kind of chemicals and drugs that are actually becoming potentially dangerous for the health. And in fact, like Ivan Illich and others who said that iatrogenesis, meaning that a lot of diseases and risks are actually produced in the hospitals and with the drugs and clinics. Okay, so in that sense, alternative medical knowledge systems are more popular even in the affluent nations and among the elite and the upper classes, because of its less side effects and less riskier kind of solutions that these systems of knowledge have provided. Now turning on to the Siddha medicine, which is again another Indian system of knowledge. What we normally call Ayurveda and Siddha are like twin brothers or twin sisters. Ayurveda actually is popular across the country in different states, while the Siddha medicine actually is popular in South India, more particularly in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. And most of the Siddha medical practitioners and hospitals actually are there in Tamil Nadu. Why? What is the difference between Ayurveda and Siddha medicine? While Ayurveda actually, the way it believes that the kind of the diseases or the illnesses are caused by certain disturbances which can be attributed to the five forces of the earth, air, water, fire, etc. Siddha medicine also believes in terms of the bodily equilibrium. But Siddha medicine actually emerged. The question is, why is it that Siddha medicine is only prevalent in South India, in mostly in Tamil Nadu? Okay, it's primarily because of certain kind of plants and materials that are available in each region. Okay, this knowledge system actually developed in Tamil Nadu because uh, of the fact that certain metals and minerals available in Tamil Nadu actually are very, very helpful or beneficial in terms of providing the medical solutions to the people. So based on those kind of resources, local resources available in Tamil Nadu, Siddha medicine emerged as an alternative, as a system of knowledge, basically, and and the efficacy of the Siddha medicine is much, much higher than Ayurveda, and it is also popular if among a larger class of people compared to the Ayurvedic system of knowledge. Okay, and the implication of this kind of a Siddha medicine, which also existed during the pre-colonial period. It went through the phase in the colonial period where British actually subjugated and marginalized Siddha medicine. It also actually incorporated a lot of dimensions from the allopathic knowledge. Okay, but what is significant today in contemporary situation is that Siddha medicine actually is widely accepted even by the government, and you have in every nook and corner of Tamil Nadu, all the primary health centers and community health centers, you also have Siddha doctors. Okay, meaning that there is much more acceptability of Siddha knowledge system. Yeah, Siddha medical knowledge actually, as I said, is more popular, accepted, and it's not only by local healers and local doctors, but the fact that government also recognized this system of knowledge much more compared to any other state provides us the clue, the efficacy of this knowledge system in Tamil Nadu. But it's interesting what happened in post-independent India. Okay, like other alternative systems of knowledge, whether it is Ayurveda, Unani, or other kind of knowledge, Siddha medicine also is subjected to a series of questions about its scientificity, its validity, its universal kind of acceptability, and whole range of questions that are raised against Siddha medicine as well. But with the globalization and after Ayush, that Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha, and Homeopathy was actually patronized by the Indian state, Siddha medicine actually is much more uh, uh, accepted by the the pharma companies. Okay, the modern allopathic kind of system of knowledge recognized and places the value of Siddha medicine much higher because the possibility of commercializing Siddha medicine actually is higher. Okay, so that's one reason. Second, most of these the Siddha medical doctors who are capable of actually explaining and producing the, the pharmacies or the medicines. Okay, uh, those pharmacopoeia actually is helpful to do a clinical trial, standardize, and actually adapt itself to the modern medical system. So, quite a few Siddha medical doctors actually have been hired by these multinational pharma companies to actually develop the modern pharmacy and modern pharmacopoeia and make it available to wider sections of the people so that they can actually market it. Okay. So I think if these are dimensions, I think what is its sociological significance? Okay. Why are we today interested in understanding Siddha medicine? One, how market forces actually, are trying to appropriate those medical knowledge systems which can actually provide greater possibilities of standardizing and commodifying the medical system that can accrue huge kind of profits and foreign exchange. Okay, but at the same time, Siddha medical doctors are also actually questioned, saying that they are not as scientific. The validity of their medical knowledge actually is all the time questioned. So the ambiguity with which the modern medicine actually engages these alternative systems. On the one hand, it wants to actually appropriate and develop a synergy where they can actually use it for commercial purposes. On the other hand, those processes that it does not actually lend itself to standardization, it debunks and actually degrades and questions the validity. So these processes, one is accepting it, at the same time, condemning it and degrading the knowledge systems. I think is something that one needs to understand how capital operates in the real world. Okay, the way the forces of capital actually shape the medical knowledge system. In fact, quite a few Siddha medical doctors actually have written extensively in terms of how there is a huge kind of a pressure or demand on Siddha medicine to develop antiretroviral kind of drugs for HIV/AIDS because there is market. And most of these actually the modern allopathic drugs are very expensive. So the possibility of exploring cheaper medicines through alternative medicine is not because that it can cater to the needs of the diseased people. No, the possibility of generating higher profits. Okay, and this is where they all the time say that these compelling kind of factors are to be understood in shaping and reshaping the Siddha medical knowledge system in India. Okay, so when you look at the coexistence or medical pluralism in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, in particular, okay, uh, the Siddha medicine, the homeopathy, allopathy, and other kind of medical knowledge systems which are prevalent, it appears that there is higher choice for the people in Tamil Nadu and Kerala in terms of large systems of medicine. But in reality, okay, these medical knowledge systems actually are resorted to only in those cases where the efficacy is being in question or in doubt in terms of allopathic medicine. So there is there is both in terms of these conditions. When you look at, I think it's important to understand the regional kind of histories, how a particular knowledge system developed, but how these knowledge systems are struggling today in terms of establishing themselves. That's about Siddha medicine and its evolution in India over a period of time. Now let's turn to ethnomedicine or folk medicine. Okay, ethnomedicine actually is again a kind of medical knowledge system which actually which relies on the local kind of culture, local kind of practices, and local resources. So, a lot of folk medicine and ethnomedicine, which actually evolves in the micro context. Okay, it is dependent on the kind of diseases or the kind of ailments that people undergo. The remedies are actually produced within those micro contexts. Okay, if a particular kind of a plant species or a particular kind of the minerals and other kind of resources are being used, okay, which may not have any scientific validity, but most of these is validated by the communities themselves. How? By way of all the time experimenting. In fact, ethnomedicine and these folk medical kind of knowledge believes that knowledge actually is produced in the everyday experiences, and all food actually is medicine and poison. Which one actually is more poison and which one is more beneficial to the human body is tested on a day-to-day basis and through the experiences of the communities. And based on these communities, the local kind of healers and local communities actually develop this knowledge. But because there is no documentation of this ethnomedical knowledge, there is no a particular text that is available to explain its kind of methods, its kind of knowledge, its causes, how remedies are actually developed, how efficient it is. Therefore, the modern medicine actually eliminates that these knowledge systems are harmful, dangerous, and riskier for the communities, and therefore they are all superstitious. These set of knowledge system actually is to be avoided. While there are like David Hardiman, what he was talking about subaltern therapeutics. So medicine men and the local kind of practitioners are important to actually understand their worldview, what kind of knowledge is produced. Of course, it's not that these knowledge actually is to be accepted or is to be judged, but who are we to judge? Who are we to determine the rationality? We are only trying to understand how and why communities accept certain of these ethnomedical practices or the healers and that of the folk medical knowledge. In that sense, sociology of health actually needs to understand this corpus of alternative medical systems that actually exist in India, from text-based allopathic and allopathic, Ayurveda and Unani, to that of the non-text-based, non-institutionalized, non-documented, largely practiced and followed by the kind of non-elite and local kind of communities. Okay, so to understand comprehensively the definition of health, hygiene, disease, illness, we need to understand different systems of knowledge that actually evolved emerged, okay, and the competing kind of ideas that are actually played out in day-to-day kind of lives. Okay. As sociologists, I think we need to use a comparative method to actually, assess these corpus of knowledge, to be able to, explain why certain communities actually rely on these kind of text-based or non-text-based kind of knowledge systems. Okay, and that actually is the basis for sociologists to actually to analyze, to actually make a kind of a explanation why communities actually resort from home remedies to religious and spiritual healing practices to folk knowledge systems to multiple kind of medical healers, starting from the the allopathic to that of Ayurvedic and Unani and homeopathy and whole range of things. So the instead of actually saying that people are irrational, doctor shopping is because of their their illiteracy and irrationality, we need to understand the rationality from the people themselves. So in that sense, this module, homeopathy, the kind of Siddha medicine, ethnomedicine, actually is a module that brings to the debate, the larger conceptual and methodological issues for us to, make a kind of a comprehensive analysis. Let me sum up now this module. We began with homeopathy, how an alternative medicine that emerged in Europe actually has become widely prevalent today in different countries, including India. How the acceptability and its own kind of methods and its own kind of theories and frameworks are completely different from the modern medical knowledge systems, and it's important to actually look at the way homeopathy actually has today actually is being accepted, not simply in terms of urban and literate kind of sections, but even among the non-literate and the local communities. So one is to understand historically some of these alternative systems of knowledge, how it developed, and sociologically speaking, the significance of the alternative system. Okay, and then we move to the Siddha medical knowledge system, which is widely prevalent in South India, and where there is a lot more state patronage and acceptability. How Siddha medicine actually how Siddha medicine was able to sustain itself in Tamil Nadu compared to other systems of knowledge, and more importantly, during the globalization, how Siddha medicine actually is in high demand for commercial kind of purposes in terms of using it for certain, market kind of purposes. Okay, so that's another dimension that we said alternative medicines actually are, competing and at the same time trying to co-opt themselves, and how do we understand this dynamic? Ethnomedicine actually is an again alternative kind of a medical knowledge which is produced from the communities, and a lot of this knowledge system actually is developed based on the needs of the communities and based on the locally available resources. Most of these knowledge actually is not documented, codified, or it is not actually validated in quote unquote scientific terms, but it has been widely used in different communities and in different contexts. So I think this module actually provides us an opportunity to understand the alternative knowledge systems that actually exist for us to actually sociologically engage with these different systems of medicine that is prevailing in India. what we call understanding medical plurality or pluralism. Okay, so it's important to understand marginality and pluralism, and I hope you will actually be able to read more on these concerns.